I am pleased and honored to have in studio with me the author of one of my favorite books, In the Jaws of the Dragon is the title of the book, and I think one that everybody in America must read. It's why I made it one of my BuzzFlash.com books of the month. If you go over to the BuzzFlash.com website, it's one of those great progressive websites that's entirely supported by the sale of books, and so I write a book review for them every month, or pretty much every month, and have for, I don't know, 5 years or so. And Eamonn Fingleton's book, In the Jaws of the Dragon, one of my favorite. Eamonn Fingleton, welcome to Portland.
Thom, great to be with you. Thank you.
And so pleased to have you with us here in the studio. Your website, by the way, unsustainable.org, just for those who might want to check it out on the web. Eamonn, you brought this to my attention. There's this Paul Krugman article, which I don't know how I missed it, although I've been traveling a lot and it's been pretty busy. There have been a lot of China stories in the news lately. There's been some very acrimonious dialogue between Google and China, for example, but I think perhaps more importantly, the discussion about whether the United States should or can force China to revalue their currency. That we have been, since we no longer have a national industrial policy and basically haven't since Reagan, and we no longer have an international trade policy and haven't since Reagan, and, well, in a big way, haven't since Clinton joined us into the WTO. Our international trade policy is now that of the transnational corporations. We've been trying to use monetary policy to regulate our imports and exports, that is, the value of our currency relative to other people's currencies, and China hasn't been playing that game very well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So explain this.
Well, the Chinese currency is very undervalued. We can debate how much, but it's certainly 15%, it may be 30%, it may be 40%, 50%, 60%. And that gives Chinese exporters an enormous advantage in competing not just in the American market, but worldwide against American producers. And it's not the way that free trade is supposed to work. It's highly managed trade, actually.
Yeah, highly managed by them and not at all by us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you are proposing that we put a temporary import surcharge on imports from China of about 15% or more until they revalue our currency, or their currency?
I think something has to be done. Basically, free trade is not working. It's one-way trade, one-way free trade. America is opening its market to China, but the other way around, there are all sorts of barriers, including this very egregious currency barrier to selling in China.
Right. You live in Japan, by the way. I should let our listeners know. So you're a nearby observer of what's going on in Asia and Southeast Asia. Or Asia in general, I guess. Paul Krugman wrote this column called "Taking on China" on March 15th, on the Ides of March, and he argues in this column that the conventional wisdom, which I keep hearing from every member of Congress that I talk to about the insanity of our trade policy and how we need to really start aggressively having become, quote, protectionist, end quote, their response is, we can't upset China. If we get them angry, they'll just dump, $2 trillion worth of treasuries on the market and blow up our currency in our face. Paul Krugman says no. You say no.
Absolutely. I think Krugman is right, and he has a Nobel Prize to prove that he knows what he's talking about. Right. Basically, it's a bluff. If you are fearful of China, then they will bluff you. But if you're not fearful, then they will stand down. They know that they need the United States more than the United States needs them.
But what would be the consequence of China saying, we're not going to buy any more treasuries and we're going to sell the treasuries we have, the $2 trillion of the treasuries? First of all, is it that much? Or because I've also seen numbers around 800 billion, as low as 800 billion.
Close to 2 trillion would be my
your estimate. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say that they say, we're going out in the marketplace and we're going to sell $2 trillion worth of U.S. treasuries and we're going to do it in one day at auction, and we don't care how much money we lose. This is going to impact the value of the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, it's $2 trillion in total assets, of which only a relatively small proportion is in
treasuries.
Treasuries.
I see. But if they just dumped all their U.S. assets.
Right. But think of it from their point of view. if they make the United States angry, which is really what they could well do if they didn't manage the politics of this very well, then the consequences would be just unimaginable from their point of view. They need the American market to sell their stuff. They have huge factories that are geared to selling this into this market, the biggest market in the world. They're not going to cut their own throats.
Yeah. Well, and Krugman points out that if they did go out and just dump, for example, just our treasuries, and that the U.S. dollar would then decline in value relative to most other currencies slightly, yes, and that would then give us actually an advantage in international trade because our goods would become cheaper around the world, and so the worst thing that China can do to us, the biggest threat that they have, would actually, if they carried it out, produce a positive outcome to the United States. Am I getting that right?
It would, on balance, be a great favor to the United States. Yes, indeed.
So why don't we force them to do it?
Well, indeed, I think that's Krugman's point, and it's my point that just push ahead. Bear in mind that the world economy is divided into nations that want to keep their currencies down, and those that want to keep their currencies up. In my youth, the United Kingdom always was trying to defend the pound.
Sure.
And now the United States is, quote, propping up the dollar, defending it.
And the countries do that by having their national banks or their central banks, rather. Thank you. Buy and sell debt in that currency, or buy and sell other currencies, or both.
A lot of manipulation behind the scenes, but the other side of this is that you've got Germany, you've got Japan, and you've got China, Korea, Taiwan. These countries have always wanted to keep their currency low. Mm-hmm. So they're on the opposite side of this, always wanting to keep the currency as low as possible to benefit their exporters. And on the other side, the United States and Britain, the two economies that started out after World War II with the world at their feet, and pursuing this policy has been a large part of the problems they've encountered over the years in terms of declining export competitiveness and general economic power.
Would it be safe? We're talking with Eamonn Fingleton. His book is In the Jaws of the Dragon. It's must reading for anybody who wants to be economically and trade literate in this world. Unsustainable.org is his website. And Eamonn, we have a minute left, and in that minute, we're using monetary policy, the value of our currency, as our primary way of influencing trade policy. What should we do instead? What would you say to our legislature?
In my view, the true solution to the problem is tariffs. To put tariffs on, frankly, imports from all over the world. You might make an exception for certain nations such as Canada, but you would first put the tariffs in place and then negotiate the exceptions. Mm-hmm. Basically, free trade is not working, and there are many problems with this free trade doctrine that are not really discussed at all in the conventional press. The American market is a very big market, and it was built on protectionism. And up until the 1950s, basically, the American market was protected, and it was precisely because it was protected that it was so rich.
Literally from 1793, when Hamilton got this stuff passed through Congress.
Right, yeah. So there's nothing wrong with protectionism, and there's much that's right about it in terms of being able to see your own society. And
we just have to reclaim this word. I mean, it's been stolen. Eamonn Fingleton, unsustainable.org. His book, In the Jaws of the Dragon. You can get it over at buzzflash.com or any good bookseller. Eamonn, thank you.
Thank you, Tom.